Welcome, multimedia students. It's me, Mr. Cheney, with another brilliant tutorial. This one, we are going to go over the elements of photography. We're going to go over 9 or 10 of them, and so these are things that we're looking to do when we take photographs to make the pictures look better. So our goal really is to get away from what a lot of people do and put the subject right in the center of every picture. We're looking to specifically, purposefully make our pictures look better with these elements. Now, these aren't hard and fast rules, but these are really just suggestions that for the most part will make the pictures look better. So we'll go through the definitions, and you'll open up your slide deck as we go through this, the Nearpod assignment, and you'll answer the questions as I go through the video lecture itself. And with that in mind, we're going to go over all of the elements now. So we're going to be going over things like rule of thirds and balancing elements and leading lines and so forth. So the learning targets. I'm going to explain the 9 rules of photography composition. We're going to explain why the rules of photography composition exist. We're going to identify examples of all 9 or 10. There's one that's combined. You'll see what I mean when we get there. And then we're going to create our own examples after we've found some examples online. So question number 1 for you, and this is the student view of the questions. Before we begin, how much experience would you say you've had at taking photographs? So we have expert level, we have good amount, we have some experience, and 0 experience. There's no wrong answer on this one. We're just trying to account for how much experience with photography. So why? Why are there rules for taking photographs? Don't think of them so much as rules, but more as guidelines. You won't get in trouble if you don't follow them, but following them could lead you to a really good photograph. So that's what we want to keep in mind here. What happens if you take a picture that does not incorporate one of the rules of photography composition? Well, you could still end up with a really good photograph. Or you could end up with a really crummy photograph, like these photographs that were taken not using the 9 rules of photography. In fact, they violated at least one rule of photography in each one of these pictures. So if we look at the one here, bottom left, it's just so busy, like you can't tell what the subject is. You've got people in the background, their backs are facing you. You've got a picture of a guy, we don't know who it is, up in the top left. The statue's kind of interesting looking. Background is very busy. Not sure what's going on there. Top right here, the picture, we have a statue, but we have a real human behind it. So is the head supposed to be part of the statue? Who knows? That could be interesting, but not really. So the very first element that we're going to talk about is rule of thirds. So imagine that your image is divided into 9 equal boxes by 2 vertical lines and 2 horizontal lines. Some cameras will do this function for you. In fact, most of our cell phones do, and I'll show you where that function is if you can't find it yourself. So having those lines, and they're imaginary, so when you take the picture they won't show up on the photograph. So they're there to position the most important element of your photograph along the lines or at the points where the lines intersect. So in other words, try to put the subject of your photograph in one of the thirds of the frame. So you have the left, middle, right, you have the top third, middle third, bottom third. So our goal really is for the subject of our picture to be in one of those areas. So in this picture with the bird, it's in the right third and it's more towards the top third as well. So hitting the intersection of those is ideal. So we're trying to avoid putting our subject right in the center of the picture. In the bottom picture, the road actually is the subject of this picture, and it's mostly in the right third of the picture. Okay, so the question for this, true or false, the subject of your photograph should always be placed directly in the middle of the frame, so you make a decision based on the information we just went over. Balancing elements is the next element of photography we'll be discussing. So putting your subject off center, as with the rule of thirds, creates an interesting photograph, but it often leaves a void which can make the picture feel empty. Try to balance the weight of your photograph by including another object of lesser importance to fill in the empty void. So in these pictures right here, we have windmills and then we have a third base and a baseball field. If we were to take this small windmill out of the picture, the rest of it is very barren. There's not much to look at. So this is off balance because you would have 2 of these windmills over to the left not much going on over in the right, and it's unbalanced in that way because your eyes only have really one interesting thing to look at. So it's not like a scale. We're not trying to balance weight that way. It's elements. Here with the third base, if that graphic, even though it's blurry, was not there, it would be just a blank wall with grass with dirt, and there wouldn't be really much of an interest to the right of the picture. So the fact that that graphic there helps balance the picture with the actual third base on the field. The next element we'll talk about is leading lines. So naturally our eyes are drawn along lines. Carefully thinking about how you place lines in your photograph can affect the way we view the image. Doing so can pull us into an image, towards the subject, or through the scene. So leading lines can be straight, curvy, diagonal, zigzag, or any other way. So in this top picture, there's actually two types of leading lines. So some of us might see the river first, and that, our eyes would follow that out to maybe a lake out in the distance. But most of us see the road first to the right, and our eyes are going to kind of follow the road to see if there's anything interesting at the end of it. In the bottom picture, the rail is starting at the bottom of the stairs and leading us up to the subject, which is the man walking up the stairs. So question, leading lines can include which type of lines? So you'll make that determination based on the info before. The next elements, which is a combination, so this is like 3 and 4, symmetry and patterns. So symmetry and patterns, both natural and man-made, are all around us. They can make for very eye-catching photography compositions if you can properly capture them. Some of the most beautiful symmetry and pattern compositions take place in situations where symmetry and patterns are least expected. So this top picture is an example of in nature, a pattern. So this is a succulent plant, and it's really interesting to look at. And then symmetry. Symmetry is where you have something that's basically the same on the left or right or top and bottom. So if we were to put an imaginary line down this picture, the left and right side are basically the same, like the columns, the trees, even the reflection in the water is the same. So if you split the building in half, the left side basically looks like the right side. So having something symmetrical is key. The next element is framing. Similar to symmetry and patterns, there are natural and man-made frames all around us. By placing these around the edges of your subject, you help isolate it from the outside world, drawing the viewer's attention to the point of interest. So natural frames can be trees, rocks, holes, or many other things. Man-made frames can be windows, doors, or other structures that man made. So in this example here, this is a natural frame because the rock croppings are like framing what's beyond it, which is more interesting rocks. Down here, this is an arch, obviously man-made. And so if we're using the rule of thirds, that boat out on the lake, that's the subject of the picture. Now if we went beyond this arch, still a cool picture, but the arch makes it that much better because we're using the framing, and in this case a man-made frame with the arch. So question, what is an example of a man-made frame? Okay, moving on to the next element here is depth. So because photography is two-dimensional, it's important to convey the proper sense of depth that was present in the actual scene, so in real life. You can create depth in your photograph by including objects in the foreground, middle ground, and background. So the two examples we have here is a crayon box. This one's kind of harder to tell, but the forefront or the foreground is over here to the left, a little blurry, but you can see most of the crayons. In the middle is the subject and blurry to the right. Pool table a little better. Big orange ball right in our face, that's the foreground, very obviously. And then we move deeper into the picture, the 10 ball is in the middle ground, and then beyond these two we have the balls in the background. So that's the element of depth. So using the draw tool or text tool, label the parts of the picture that demonstrate depth. So we just went over that with the pool table. So you're going to label foreground, middle ground, background. You can use the text tool, or you can write, circle, whatever you need to do to demonstrate that. The next element, cropping. Sometimes photographs are taken with so much noise, quote noise, around the subject that it often becomes lost, too small, or insignificant. If this occurs, try cropping tight around the subject of your photograph or part of the subject in an effort to eliminate the noise and get the viewer's undivided attention. So this toucan, they cropped it into the face so you can see the beak and the eye, and it's a really interesting picture. far better than if you were far away and you saw like one or two birds just in the distance. This makes for a compelling picture when you crop in right on the face. So in this bottom picture here, Daisy, we can see the pistils and we can see the pollen, we can see the petals up close. So a little more interesting when you crop in tight like that than just seeing like a field of these flowers. So question, what is the purpose of cropping? So you'll write that answer right there in your slide deck. Next one is background. So too many times a picture is taken and the final result is less than perfect because the subject blends into a busy or distracting background. To make your subject stand out, shoot your subject with a plain or unobtrusive background. Doing this will allow the background to not distract or detract from the true subject of the photograph. So this apple one, it's pretty obvious. If you have no background, so the absence of light, the background is black, then you have a spotlight on the apples, really easy to know what the subject of the picture is. Bottom example, we have these shutters that are not too distracting. The soccer ball is very obviously the subject. It's using the rule of thirds, it's in the right third of the picture. The net doesn't get too much in the way, so we're still able to see the subject of the picture is the soccer ball. So question, true or false? The attached picture has a background that is not too busy and the subject can be easily found in the picture. So clicking on this picture actually makes it bigger so you can see it better, and you're going to determine true or false if that statement is true or false. Okay, moving on. The next element is viewpoint. The viewpoint of a photograph has massive impact on how great of a composition the photograph will be. Take time to think about where you will shoot from. Consider shooting from high above, down at ground level, from the side, from the back, etc. As a result, this can greatly affect the message your photograph conveys. So in this example, we have this really tall, massive building with this really interesting cage around it. And so being the photographer, we're kind of insignificant and this building is kind of towering over us. It feels powerful. Now conversely, the picture down below with the little boy, we're shooting from above and our subject, the boy, is down below. So it makes him kind of look small, feel weak, and so it conveys a different type of message than the picture up above where we had our camera from bottom to top. So true or false, the viewpoint of your photograph can affect the message you're trying to get to your audience. And now it's quiz time. So in the next 9 slides, you're going to see a different picture and you're going to try to see if you can identify the element that that picture is trying to convey, the ones that we just covered in these slides. So for example, question 1, we have this picture of this red, yellow, and green car. Very similar to an example we went over. And so would this be leading lines, depth, cropping, or framing? So you'll make your decision on that. And you'll go through all 9 and your points will be determined on how many of these that you get correct. I believe it's 2 points per picture. So good luck with that. Thanks for watching the lecture. Go through your Nearpod slides and I'll see you back in class.